Okay, let's unpack this. What if, what if getting rich wasn't just, luck or working super
So what if
hard?
it was structured, like a game?
Exactly, a game with
Gotcha.
actual rules, players, different ways to play, specific actions you kind of have to take.
And even levels you can move through.
Yeah, levels. That's the really fascinating idea we've been digging into. We've got this source, a YouTube video transcript that lays it all out like that.
Right. It frames wealth accumulation as this, well, strategic game.
So our mission here for this deep dive, we want to be your guides through this. Pull out the core strategy, the mechanics, the actionable stuff it suggests.
So you can really get your head around this specific viewpoint, this game of getting rich, and figure out, how you might want to play, or if you even want to play according to these rules.
Exactly. It's about understanding this perspective on how money works, seen through this game lens.
Okay, so like any game,
Mm-hmm.
you got to start with the rules.
Right. Yeah. Where do we begin? The rules. This framework gives us three foundational ones. Rule number one, pretty simple.
Yeah, only the government, the central bank, they're the only ones who can print cash.
The rest of us? Nope. Can't just magic money into existence.
Which leads straight to rule 2. If you're not the government, well, for you to get money.
Someone else has to give it to you.
Yep. And rule 3, this is the kicker.
They got to do it voluntarily.
Voluntarily. Crucial point. You can't force them.
Right. They have to choose to hand over their money. And why do they do that? Well, think about buying coffee or your phone or anything.
You want the thing more than the money at that moment.
Exactly. That voluntary swap, that's the key.
And that reveals the basic strategy for winning this game, according to the source. Step 1, create value. Do something, make something that someone else actually wants.
Then step two, exchange that value. Swap it for money.
That's it. The whole game fundamentally is value creation, value exchange.
Okay, simple enough on paper. But here's where it gets tricky, apparently. People mix up different kinds of value.
Yeah. The source highlights 3. There's your human value, just as a person.
Yeah.
Immeasurable.
Then societal value, the good you do for society, like nurses, teachers, firefighters.
Essential stuff. But then there's the third type, market value.
Market value. What something's worth on the open market. Supply, demand.
And crucially, what people with money are willing to pay for it right now.
And the really critical point this framework makes, maybe a bit uncomfortable, is that for this specific game of getting rich.
Only market value counts.
Yeah, that feels kind of stark, doesn't it? You think of the societal value of, say, a care worker versus, I don't know, someone selling luxury watches. The market might value the watches way higher.
It's the classic diamond water paradox Adam Smith talked about. Water, essential for life, huge societal value, but usually cheap. Why? It's abundant.
Diamonds, pretty useless for survival. Low societal value in that sense.
But super high market value. Scarce, desired by those who can afford them. Market value often just isn't connected to societal need or, goodness.
So if your goal within this game's rules is getting richer, you have to focus on generating market value, whether you like it or not.
That's the premise here. It's just how this specific game operates.
Okay, so understanding that voluntary exchange of market value, how does the game actually play out? The source talks about 3 core actions everyone performs.
Right. Every economic entity does these 3 things, whether you're just one person or a massive company.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's doing the work. This is the value creation bit. Writing the code, doing the surgery, building the iPhone, teaching the lesson.
Got it. Making or doing the actual thing.
Second, selling the work. That's the value exchange part.
Making the sale, getting paid. Apple selling the phone, the hospital billing insurance, you getting your paycheck.
Exactly. And the third action.
The boring stuff.
Kind of. Administering and maintaining the work. For you, maybe it's keeping your skills up to date, doing your taxes, paperwork.
Right.
For a business, it's HR, legal, finance, IT, all that operational machinery.
Okay, doing, selling, administering. So the idea is if you want more money in this game, you need to get better at these or change how you do them.
Precisely. And that leads to who is doing them. The source identifies 2 main players.
The individual.
And the business.
And most of us start as individuals, right? Employees usually.
Yep. But the argument here is that the rules, especially for building wealth, are really different for a business. Often way better.
How so? What are the big differences?
Okay, let's tick them off. Pay. As an individual employee, you get a salary, maybe a bonus.
A business gets profits, dividends.
Selling the entity. You can't sell yourself. I mean, legally.
Right, but you can sell a business. That's how tech founders often make fortunes.
Big one. Taxes. As an individual, you're usually taxed on income before most expenses come out.
Businesses, taxed after expenses. Plus, loads more deductions, tax breaks generally. It's why accountants often say form a company.
Pricing. As an employee, you might negotiate your salary once, maybe twice a year.
If you're lucky, a business can change its prices whenever the market lets them.
Clients. An employee usually has just one main client.
Your employer.
A business ideally has many customers or clients. Diversification.
Hiring. As an employee, you generally can't just hire someone else to do your job and keep the difference.
Definitely not. But a business is designed to hire people. That's leverage. The source mentions that UK contractor test, can you send a substitute? If yes, you look more like a business.
Focus. Individuals often sell time. 9 to 5. Hours for dollars.
Businesses usually sell outcomes. A finished website, a delivered product. It decouples earnings from your personal time.
And capturing value. If I'm an employee and I figure out a way to save the company millions.
Most of that extra value goes to the company's profit line.
But if I own the business.
That excess value, it's your profit to capture.
Okay, that's a pretty compelling list of advantages for the business side.
It is. But to be fair, being an employee has upsides too. Legal protections like severance or notice periods, though that varies a lot by country, like US versus Europe.
Perks like health insurance in the US, often tied to your job.
And, importantly, way less personal financial risk, usually. You're unlikely to lose your house or go into deep debt just by being an employee compared to starting a business.
Sure, makes sense. There are reasons people stick with employment. But this framework really hammers home that for wealth accumulation, the game structure favors playing as a business.
Which sets us up nicely for the different levels of the game described in the source. 4 main levels, plus a kind of warm-up.
The warm-up is the tutorial level, right? Basically being a kid, going through school, full-time education, you're just getting ready.
Exactly. Then level 1, the employee, this is where most people jump in, and you're doing those 3 actions, doing, selling, admin, but the percentages are way different.
Right. The source says maybe like 95% of your time is doing the job you're hired for.
Maybe 5% on admin, like personal development, timesheets, expenses.
And selling. Almost none. Maybe less than 1%. Unless you're actually in sales. It's just job interviews, performance reviews.
Negotiating a raise, yeah. You're basically a component in the bigger business machine, doing your part in product or sales or admin.
So the million-dollar question, maybe literally, can you get rich at level 1?
The source says, conditionally, yes, it's possible, but usually only in very specific fields where your individual contribution creates massive, measurable market value for the employer.
Like Wall Street traders bringing in millions, getting huge bonuses.
Yeah, or top salespeople on massive commissions, maybe certain high-paid surgeons in the U.S. system, some very niche tech roles perhaps. If you make the firm $10 million, they might pay you $1 million because it's still great profit for them.
But it's the exception, not the rule. The source claims most self-made millionaires didn't get there just being employees.
And there's a critical point about level 1 stability, especially now. Why does an employer keep you?
Because I make them more money than I cost.
Bingo. If that changes, maybe AI can do your job cheaper, like we're seeing with some tasks on Fiverr, or even Duolingo impacting translation needs.
Then the economic reason to employ me disappears.
Which really makes you question that whole job security thing, doesn't it? Relying on one employer, especially with tech advancing so fast. Is that really the safest bet anymore?
That's a heavy thought. Okay, so that's level 1. What's level 2?
Level 2, self-employed, freelancer, solopreneur. You're now operating as a business entity, even if it's just you.
And those action percentages, they must shift big time.
Totally. Doing the actual work maybe drops to, say, 40%. Depends on the gig. Admin goes up a bit. Bookkeeping, taxes, maybe 10%.
Which means, wow, 50% or more is now selling the work.
That's the biggie. The problem of leads, the problem of sales. Suddenly, finding clients, closing deals, that's your main job, alongside doing the work.
So you get the business advantages, potential for more profit, tax breaks, multiple clients, freedom.
But you take on the whole sales burden and the stress that comes with it. You're responsible for all 3 actions now in your own little ecosystem.
Okay, level 3.
Business owner-operator. The defining feature here is you've hired at least one person.
You're not alone anymore. How do the actions change now?
You're probably doing very little of the core, doing the work yourself. Your time shifts massively towards admin, managing your team, HR stuff, setting the vision, processes.
And selling. Still a big part.
Oh, yeah. Significant time and energy still goes into selling, bringing in the business to keep your team paid and the company growing.
So the challenge doubles almost. You've still got the sales pressure from level 2, plus the complexity and, let's face it, stress of managing people.
That's often described as the hardest part, yeah. Okay, finally, level 4, the investor.
This sounds more relaxed.
Potentially. Here, you own the business, but you've hired someone else, a CEO, an operator, to run the day-to-day stuff.
So your money comes from.
Ownership. Profits, dividends, the asset itself increasing in value. It can be much more passive. Think of a founder who stepped back and hired a CEO or just owning stocks in public companies.
So moving through these levels, the way you make money fundamentally changes.
Right. Active income, trading your time or direct effort for money goes down.
Passive income from assets, businesses run by others goes up.
And crucially, your leverage increases at each level.
Leverage. Like getting more output without putting in more of your own hours.
Exactly. Level 1 employee, limited leverage, mostly time for money. Level 2 self-employed. You start decoupling time by selling outcomes. Level 3 owner-operator. You leverage your employees' time and skills.
Level 4 investor. You leverage the entire business operation run by others.
And more leverage in this framework means much higher potential earnings. So if you want to win this game of getting rich,
You're generally aiming for levels 2, 3, or 4, moving up.
that's the path presented. But okay, if those higher levels are so great for building wealth, why doesn't everyone just jump from employee to business owner?
Good question. What stops people?
The source boils it down to 3 big hurdles, calls them the 3 S's.
Let me guess. Stability, or the feeling of it in a job.
That's 1, stability, security.
Stress. The thought of running a business sounds intense.
Stress, number 2. And the 3rd.
Sales. Having to constantly sell yourself or your stuff sounds scary to a lot of people.
Bingo. Stability, stress, and sales. And this is where the source throws in a couple of hot takes.
Ooh, okay. Hot take number 1.
It challenges that whole idea of employee stability we touched on earlier.
Right. With layoffs, AI, maybe that single paycheck isn't so secure after all.
The argument is, having multiple clients as a business, diversifying where your money comes from, that might actually be more stable, more resilient than relying 100% on one employer.
It's like investing. Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why put all your income hopes in one job?
Exactly that analogy. It's a powerful way to reframe it.
Okay, hot take number 2.
This one connects the 3 S's. It argues that the ability to sell is the single most important skill to overcome the other 2 and win the game.
How does selling link to stability and stress?
Well, think about it. If you're really good at selling yourself, your skills, your product, whatever you create demand, people want what you offer.
Okay, high demand means leverage.
Yes. Supply and demand work for you. If you're in demand because you can sell effectively, you have options.
No.
You can find another job easily, command better terms, attract more clients,
Which gives you more actual security.
and therefore less stress because you feel more in control, less trapped.
Conversely, if demand for your skill is low, or you just can't sell yourself well.
It's harder to find work, harder to get clients. That leads to less security, more stress. Selling is how money comes into any entity. Mastering it is presented as the key to reducing stress and increasing real security.
That makes a lot of sense. Selling unlocks the other stuff. Okay, so if someone listening wants to, like the source says, speed run this game, what are the actionable steps? What should you actually do?
The source gives a few concrete recommendations.
Mm.
First, if you're an employee now, try to get closer to the money side of your current company.
Understand how sales actually happen, how revenue comes in, maybe even get involved.
Yeah, exactly. See the selling action up close. Second, and this is hammered home, learn to sell.
Not just products, but ideas, yourself, communicating value.
Right. The source really emphasizes this. Building something cool is great, but useless if you can't sell it. It quotes that paraphrased Naval Ravikant idea, if you can build and sell, you're basically unstoppable. Learn this skill even if it's uncomfortable.
Okay, what else?
Third, build a personal brand or professional reputation. This isn't necessarily about being insta-famous.
It's about being known as someone good, reliable, helpful in your field. Networking.
Exactly. When people know, like, and trust you, selling becomes way easier. Opportunities start coming to you. People want to work with people they respect.
Since fourth.
Start a side hustle, but with a key condition. It must make money. It can't just be a hobby you spend money on,
Why the focus on making money?
because it forces you to learn how to sell in a real-world, maybe lower-stakes environment. You have to figure out how to create market value and exchange it. Plus, it might actually grow into something significant. The source mentions their own examples, like selling courses or starting a YouTube channel that turned into businesses.
Okay, learning by doing. And the last recommendation.
Actively pursue ownership. This can take different forms.
Like negotiating for stock options if you're in tech or startup.
Yep. Or if you're in a smaller business, maybe try negotiating for a profit share or even a small equity stake down the line.
And for everyone,
Diligently save and invest, especially in broad market assets like stocks. That's playing the level 4 game slowly but surely, building wealth through owning pieces of businesses run by others, earning passive income.
so putting it all together, the speedrun path is about shifting towards acting like a business entity, embracing those challenges, particularly sales, building leverage, and aiming for ownership and passive income instead of just trading time.
Yeah, it's a conscious move towards levels 2, 3, and 4. It's presented as requiring work, facing discomfort, taking time.
But the potential payoff is framed as more freedom, more control, and ultimately a better shot at winning this specific game of getting rich. Wow, okay. That brings us pretty much to the end of this deep dive. We've walked through this really interesting framework, getting rich as a game. We looked at the rules, the players, individual versus business, the core actions, those 4 levels.
Right, from employee up to investor. And the challenges: stability, stress, sales that stop people moving up.
And finally, those actionable steps the source suggests if you want to try and play this game more strategically.
It's definitely one powerful lens for looking at how wealth building can work in our economy.
So the final thought we want to leave you with is this. Thinking about this game framework, where are you playing right now? Level 1. Maybe dipping your toes into level 2. And how does that hot take about job security versus client diversification really land with you today?
And maybe most importantly, based on this whole conversation, what's the one skill that, if you really focused on it, might make the biggest difference for your next move in this game?
Lots to think about there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.